Welcome. Thank you for joining me. It is Tracey, the Sacred CEO, and I am here at Life After Divorce, the segment My Divorce Story. And I wanted to come in and speak with you this evening live and just share with you some information on loss and loneliness. Let's talk about loss and loneliness after divorce. Okay, so why do I want to speak about loss and loneliness? Well, one of the reasons I want to speak about loss and loneliness is because I know personally I felt lost and lonely um, while going through my divorce. Um, let's talk about how I felt lost. I felt lost because, once again, my identity and even my so called happiness was attached to the marriage at one time, right? Um, but we don't leave relationships when we're happy. Let's be clear. 98.999% of people do not leave relationships when they are happy. Okay. Most of the time, things have just gotten to a point of hardship, pain, you can't recover, can't shake back. Things are multiplying. A variety of things are happening consistently. You can't see any break in sight. And a lot of times we can't even breathe, right? So, like, it's hard to breathe. I mean, it's so heavy. Okay. So, like I said, most people do not leave or get divorced when they are happily in love or in marriage. There are just a few circumstances where people do separate or leave one another due to other circumstances, but truly it be circumstances many times out of their control. Okay. So, um, but we're not here to discuss that. I am here to discuss loss and loneliness. Um, you feel like you're losing. First off, let's be clear. Loss just doesn't happen once you get divorced. You start feeling loss before you begin to prepare for your exit. You start losing, I know for me, I started losing respect. I started losing faith, right? I started losing intimacy. I started losing trust. All of these things I've been already started losing while in the marriage. Okay. So many times we are scared to leave, or we're scared to release the marriage or separate due to factors that aren't coming together in a healthy way. Like you're continuously living in a toxic situation, so we're scared to leave due to factors of what we think we've built, and really we're hanging on to a memory. We're hanging on to the memory of what was, because in the relationship, anytime you're thinking about leaving, that what it was is no longer. The thing that you loved about the person, or the thing that pulled you together and connected you, that isn't there most of the time anymore, unless there's a child. And a lot of times, if you've gotten married or gotten together because of the child, the happiness is also is connected to the child, and many times not connected to both of you, the individuals that are coming into a union to even do it for the child. So that's why a lot of times it doesn't even work. So think about it. When you are in a relationship, before you decide to separate, before you decide to leave, before you decide to get divorce, you've already lost substantial things that kept the relationship together. Like I said, you've lost communication, you've lost trust, you've lost desire, right? You've lost your happiness, you've lost your passion for the relationship. Losses are already happening. So when we are holding on, we are having an issue with detachment because we are still holding on to memories and what we've invested. We've invested time, we've invested love, we've invested money, we've invested, all kinds, many different forms of currency, resources. We've invested all of these things into this relationship. And when it doesn't work out, it's a big ass disappointment. You even will become angry. You become angry because we are taught in this society that when you are in love with someone and you and that person come together, that it's a forever thing. And the truth of the matter is, it's not always forever. It can be seasonal. And many times we don't know how to accept that. And we don't know how to release and detach when that time comes. So what happens is when the relationship is toxic, nobody's working on changing the behavior. Nobody's coming to terms on an agreement about how you can continue to make this relationship work. Or maybe you have done all of that and it's still not gelling together. That has happened too. I know couples personally who have done the marriage counseling, who have done the individual therapy, who have done the therapy together, who have done all of the things, who have changed behavior, who have came back around and asked for forgiveness and really went into working on communicating in their relationship, and the passion or the fire was just gone. Meaning the time of connectivity is up. Meaning it doesn't mean you don't love a person. It just means that now it's time to shift in the relationship. So when you think about losing the relationship, if you have to choose divorce, if you have to choose separation, if you have to choose to leave your relationship, you need to think about all the losses that you're already experiencing in the relationship and the losses that you've experienced. Because if you feel like you're going to lose this relationship, I know a lot of women think, oh, I'm about to lose him and I didn't help build him up for the next woman. First off, he has also helped you to build and grow as well. You aren't the only one that has built him up. I'm sure he in some way has also upgraded you. Even if it was indirectly, he's upgraded you in some way to where now you think different, you act different, you walk different. But you have to ask yourself, this difference that has taken place, is it for the good, for the positive, for the growth of yourself, of your individual self and the relationship, or is it for your own self-destruction and demise because of now how you feel about yourself due to the relationship? So all of these things are a factor. So also, I want to speak about loneliness. A lot of times we don't release relationships that may have expired. We don't release toxic relationships. We don't release abusive relationships many times for the fear of being lonely, for the fear of being alone, right? So I need to also add that loneliness does not constitute being around people. You can be in a relationship, in a marriage, and be lonely, doing things all by yourself, right? Taking care of everything all by yourself, doing it alone. So would you rather just be there, or is, you need to question yourself. Is your self-esteem that low to where you just have to have somebody around, even if they're not fulfilling your needs? Or even if they make you feel bad about yourself, even if they don't build you up, they're tearing you down, even if they're not producing, even if they're not committing to the relationship, even if they're not loyal. Those are self-worth in self-esteem issues that you need to take up with a counselor or a therapist. Okay? So loneliness does not constitute not people not being around. Okay. How many of you were living in a lonely marriage? Having someone around doesn't mean you won't feel lonely or feel like you're doing it alone. Okay. Loneliness can come off as not feeling understood, and it can lack intimacy. Okay. Many times we feel alone because we're in a relationship and we're feeling misunderstood, or we're not feeling understood at all. Or maybe your feelings aren't being validated. Or you could be, experiencing being belittled and made to feel small. Like, all of these make you feel lonely. You feel alone in the relationship. Okay. So, all while being in the relationship, you can definitely feel loneliness. I know many women who feel like they are parenting alone. I know one woman in particular who's been married for 10 years. They have 3 children, and he feels like when he watches his children, he's babysitting. And he says that out loud. He's like, "You got me in here babysitting these kids. I got things to do." How do you babysit your own children? Help me understand that. And then when he does so-called babysit or watch the children, he wants brownie points for that. You don't get no extra credit and no brownie points for watching your own children. That's part of the of the condition of being a parent, right? So many of us feel as though we don't want to leave a toxic relationship because of what we will feel when we lose that person, or what we think about a loss. Okay, we don't want to leave the toxic relationship because we feel like we're losing in some kind of way, and that is the wrong way to think about that. That is a misconception. Okay, that is a diluted thought, and it is a limited belief. So we've already lost so much. If you're at the point where you are ready to separate, you are ready to leave, you are ready to divorce, you've already lost so much, right? We've already lost so much if there is no plan of cohesiveness in the marriage. If you are working on it by yourself, you are losing. And the biggest person you're losing is yourself by staying. My biggest thing when I was in my previous marriage, I did not want to grow and mature in age and feel regret. I didn't want to feel disappointment. I didn't want to be discouraged. I didn't want to grow in maturity and be angry. I didn't want that persona to envelop and take over my mature life, my aging life. Okay. And another thing, these holidays can be extremely rough when it comes to leaving a relationship. Why? Why are holidays rough? For one, the weather has changed. So there's a certain type of depression sometimes that is connected to the weather change. There's not going to be as much sun during these holidays. It's the darker months. Things aren't in bloom. Flowers aren't in bloom. Trees aren't in bloom. It's very cold, right? So versus sun and heat and flowers and bloom and birds and so this time of year can be a bit more depressing. So it's going to be even harder on many of you who are in toxic relationships to leave because you're already going to be feeling a seasonal depression, especially those of you who are empathic, right? So let's talk about some things that we can do so that we don't be hit so hard with loneliness. Because I know for me, I have never been on my own in my entire life until I actually left my marriage. When I say that as a woman, particularly a Black woman who has served, given, sacrificed, shared, cared, done all of it for everybody. My children, my family. You know what I'm saying? Many of you are in the church. Many of you are doing community service. Some of you are at the, doing things doing for organizations. So you're also, you're doing family, you're doing husband, you're doing organizations, you're doing church. You're constantly dividing yourself and giving of yourself. Right? So this is my first time ever taking care of Tracey. This is my first time living on my own. At 56, I finally was able to live on my own and simply care for myself, not have to pick up after anyone, not have to wash anyone's clothes, not have to cook for anyone, not have to see about the care of anyone else. And it was long awaited. It was long awaited. I'm actually at the point I am now in my development, and through working through therapy and working on a lot of self-examination, I am grateful to my previous husband for our relationship and some of the negative behaviors and misuse that he displayed in the relationship. Because of that, I would not have chose myself. The fact that we have no contact. When we left, it was no contact. We tried to do contact, but it was so unhealthy for me because it still was draining me. And I felt drained in the relationship. And I have to say that the marriage began to drain me, like my mind, my body, and my soul. It was draining, and I was constantly giving and sharing and loving and being aware of someone else's feelings and all of that. And it was time out for that shit. I didn't have any more of that in me. And he came at the opportune time to initiate his behavior, his negative behavior in certain areas of my life that penetrated and activated something in me where I was like, no, it's time out. I gotta love myself more than this, because if he's not gonna love me the way I need to be loved, then I need to love me the way that I deserve and need to be loved. Because I didn't feel like I was being loved the way I deserved and needed to be loved in my marriage. There were so many things that happened and took place where there was no love. He did not show me that he loved me. And a lot of that didn't have to even do with me. A lot of that had to do with his own personal feelings about himself and the women before me, including his birth giver, including his mother. A lot of it had nothing to do with me, but I was on the brunt of it because, of course, the people that you love the most are usually the ones that you hurt. The people that are closest to you are the ones that we hurt. I've been guilty of it too. You've been guilty of it too. It's part of the human condition. I can't explain it. I can't explain it other than when things need to be released, those people who are close to us, that's who we release it on. Right? So let's go through some things that we can do to relieve ourselves of loneliness and when our relationship ends. And one is to accept your feelings, and identify with them with the past relationship. Accept and identify your feelings. Do not try to brush it off, or do not play games with yourself, right? Don't play yourself small. You already probably been getting played small in the relationship. Don't you play yourself small too. You have to change the dynamics of what you've experienced. The only way you're going to change the dynamics of the negative experience that you had in a relationship that was abusive or toxic is to change your experience of how you feel and treat yourself. Because if your husband, wife, mate is not going to do it, who else is going to do it? You have to show up for yourself in a way that shocks the world. Because I know I showed up for myself, and see, he didn't know that part of me. And I'm going to be totally 100% transparent. I didn't know that part of me either. I didn't know that part of me either, honey. And even though it was painful, when I say painful, it was heart-wrenching pain, gut-wrenching pain. As painful as it was, I stepped out on faith to show myself that I deserved better. So yes, my past relationship was the catalyst and the activation of me putting self-love first. It was that relationship. And this is how you get there. Accept the feelings and identify with them. Even though they are physically gone, as well as emotionally, you may still feel the disconnectedness and you're going to feel alienated. Do not alienate yourself from others, because most of the times when we leave a relationship, we feel unworthy because your confidence has been shook, right? Also, avoid rebound relationships. That's a big one. Many times we want somebody to take up that space. We want somebody to take up that place. We want somebody to ease that feeling. So what better way is to get somebody else that is just so handsome, smells so good, so pretty. Oh my God, so sexy. Yes. Okay, all of those things can be true, but guess what? You are not emotionally and mentally prepared for another relationship right after coming out of a divorce or a long-term relationship. You have to do some self-examination. I was speaking to a brother the other day, and he was saying he was ready to throw in the towel. He ready to get divorced. He's nothing else he can do. He did talk, they did therapy, they did counseling, they did all this. And the first thing he said, I'm just ready to go get me somebody else, and we finna do this shit because I and see, that instantly let me know that he has an issue with being alone, because he wants somebody else to take up the space that his wife has, right? And I said, you can't do that. I said, you can. I said, but it's not healthy. He said, why? I said, you're going to need some therapy and some counseling to get some of the residue and the emotional attachments from your wife. You're going to need to work on that before you get into another relationship. Else the new woman that you get with is going to be feeling all of the emotional highs and lows and the attachment that you had with your wife. You trying to run. That's a means of running from doing your work. You can't do that's not fair to her, and that's not fair to you. Think about that. That's not fair. Think about you're by yourself and you chilling and you've been doing your own thing for a few years or whatever, and you meet this really fucking fire, cool, sexy, fine person, right? And y'all click, y'all hitting it off. It's good, right? But this person just broke up with somebody and they have not done any of their healing. They've just been absent from the relationship. They have not dealt with any of the issues that got them to the point of separation or divorce. That means them issues are still there. Compounded with anger, okay, feeling betrayed, humiliated, and shame. All of those feelings are still there if they have not had sat with themselves for any length of time or went to any counselor or any therapy, done any therapy. So that means you're going to get the hit. You're going to get the hit of everything that they've been dealing with just because they're not present or in relationship or connected to the relationship anymore. You're going to get that hit. And that's not fair to you. That's not fair to you. And many of us, we still get into relationships. I made that mistake. I made the mistake of getting with someone who had a really, really bad breakup with somebody that he was with temporarily. It wasn't even a long time. So first, it was a breakup with a previous wife. Then there was a breakup with a short-term relationship that went really south. Right? It was stinking. So he had all of that compacted energy, emotional debt, mental disorder, self-worth, self-esteem, all of that. Anger, bitterness, all of that. Because they didn't do their work. He didn't do his work before we got together. And I thought I taking responsibility because I felt like, okay, I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of work. The fact that he's been separated from these relationships for this many years should count for something. That it ain't count for shit other than his absence. I'm telling you, right? So avoid rebound relationships, right? Don't let your loneliness after your breakup or your divorce push you into the arms of another. Don't do that. Avoid loneliness and your emotions through someone else. That's the worst thing you can do, right? So also join a support group or get your counseling. If you're going to join a support group for people who have been divorced, people who are choosing divorce, people who are leaving long-term relationships. All right. Also, start a new routine. Hobbies. What happened to hobbies? We used to have hobbies. People used to like go dancing. You used to like go cooking, singing. A lot of people go do karaoke, right? People used to sew. People used to bike ride. Would you have a few people read? Oh, honey, what happened? Why don't we hear more about hobbies? Go find a new hobby. You have to do something to replace the time spent with the person. That's after the rest. Because you're going to need, I know me, I'm still resting. It'll be 2 years next month that I actually left. And I am still resting. I am still taking things one day at a time and taking it slow and honoring my body, honoring my mental state, my emotional state, and honoring rest. Rest is so important when you are going through a heavy emotional battle. Okay? So starting a new routine, things like make sure you spend time with friends. That's very important. People that love and care about you, most definitely get involved. Maybe you want to volunteer somewhere, volunteer at the hospital, volunteer at the women's shelter, volunteer at the shelter in general, the homeless shelter, right? Volunteer in a soup kitchen. Okay, volunteer, do some volunteer work so that you can feel valuable, because a lot of times when we are leaving a marriage, and we oftentimes don't understand our worth and our value, because our value and our worth was connected to the marriage. It was connected to our spouse. It was connected to our family unit, to our social circles. So now we're trying to figure out, what is our worth? Where's our value? Where do we belong? Right? So get involved in new things. Okay. Like I said, volunteer work is really, really good. Also, be kind to yourself. Be so good to yourself. Be sweet on yourself. Love yourself. Become the lover that you need. I am so soft and gentle with myself now. I don't rush myself. Anytime a negative thought comes in and I'm thinking something crazy, like about my body or something, I instantly retract it and replace it with a positive thought. I am so sweet on myself now. I constantly hear and tell myself all the time, be good to you, be good to yourself. Just be good to yourself. Like, be good to myself. I'm constantly saying that to myself. Be sweet on yourself. You don't have to move so fast. You don't have to be committed to anything or anybody. Just yourself right now. Breathe. Inhale and exhale. Inhale beauty, exhale love. These are things I tell myself on a daily basis. And I really take life a lot easier and a lot slower, because I really, truly am building and creating a new love relationship with myself, a revolutionary love relationship with myself. Yeah, it's revolutionary because we're not taught to love ourselves in this society. So anytime you are implementing and acting in behavior of self-love, that is a revolutionary act. That is a revolutionary act. Yes, because we're taught to love everyone else, especially as women, and to separate ourselves among everybody else except ourselves. We are actually many times made to feel guilty when it is time to love ourselves. But I say, you are so beautiful. You are so beautiful. You are so worthy, and you are so deserving of loving yourself. Think about it. You've loved everyone else. You've served everyone else. You've cared for everyone else. Now it's time for you. It is time for you. So for most people, loneliness occurs after a divorce or breakup, but it's a temporary part of the grieving process. It is a temporary part of the grieving process. And holding on, knowing that a relationship has expired. Now, if you've done everything in your power to make that thing work, okay, whether you worked on it, he didn't work on it, or whether he worked on it, you didn't work on it, or whether both y'all worked on it and it still just didn't come together, it just didn't work, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, if I would have gotten the cooperation that I needed, that I feel the marriage deserved, that we needed as a couple, as a union, if I would have got the cooperation, I'd still be married. I'd still be married. I still be married. Who gets married to get divorced? I didn't. I didn't get married to get divorced. I got married for the long run. I got married for life. And most people, when they get married, they do. Right? We don't get married to get divorced. But when there's no cooperation, and you feel like you are alone and you're working on things by yourself, and then you're feeling belittled and misused, and you're being played small. They playing on your intelligence, and it's manipulation and gaslighting and all that. I was losing more by being there than I ever lost leaving. Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. This is Life After Divorce show. This is the show dedicated to having the discussions concerning marriage, relationships, and divorce. We are committed to bringing awareness and shedding some light on strategies that assist in restoring faith, purpose, love, happiness after divorce. And I want to say this. Being single does not mean you are alone. And being married does not mean you are happy. Let's be clear. Marriage, we would love for it to equal happiness, but it doesn't many times. So I repeat that. Single doesn't mean you're lonely. Being single doesn't mean you're lonely. And being married doesn't mean you're happy. All right. Peace and blessings, Tracey, the Sacred CEO. Go ahead and join our private exclusive community at lifeafterdivorceshow.com. Go and sign up for our email list and check us out on Mondays at 8 p.m. where we have guests that come and share their marriage and divorce story and their life after divorce. You are not in this alone. Peace and blessings.